again with our good friend Ted Nesbitt for some more Steel Talk here with Steelers of Ireland. Ted, getting around things that we haven't talked about, the formation and the beginning of the Irish Steel Guitar Festival.
Yes, that all come about in 2002.
Yeah.
And I got a call from Richard Nelson, and Richard Nelson was saying, you know, Jerry Hogan has quit his festival in England, and there's really nothing left. I think it's about time we put something together. And I said I would love to be involved. And he then introduced me to Maurice Wilson, who come from Lisburn, and to Pat Orpin from Waterford.
Yeah.
And we formed like a sort of a committee of maybe 5 people. And the idea was to add more people to the committee as we went along.
Sure.
And we decided, let's try and put a show together. There's a lot involved when you do things like this, you know. Initially, the cost to do something like this, you gotta get premises, you gotta get equipment, you gotta get a band, you gotta advertise, and but anyway, we thought we'll give it a crack anyway, and we got our committee together. We had a couple of meetings, and we decided to go for it in October, right?
Yeah.
And Richard said, we're going to bring in an American artist, and the first man we brought over was Doug Jernan.
Yeah, that's right.
And Doug come along with his wife Jetta, and we were in the Europa Hotel in Drogheda.
That's correct. I was there.
And I must say the Europa Hotel at that time was some people said it was a seedy place, you know. But the sound in their auditorium was fabulous. It really was.
Yeah.
So we put the show together, and I must say it was a great success. And I remember on the Sunday morning, Doug and his wife come in, and I said to Doug, well, he played on Saturday and he was playing again on the Sunday. And I says, well, Doug, what do you reckon so far? And he said, man, he said, you got the most incredible band. He said, that band you have here is equal to anything we have in Nashville.
Well, that's
absolutely superb.
What a compliment, yeah.
So the show went off very well, and the following year then we had Bobby Seymour over.
Wow.
And Bobby put up a great show. And the show has just progressed from then, but after a while we got a surprise call from the hotel to say that the Europa Hotel was being demolished.
Wow.
And they would move us to one of their other hotels in Bettystown. And we were there for a couple of years until eventually we moved to the Green Isle Hotel, and we've been there for quite a while.
The current, yeah.
Yeah. But all in all, the ISGA has been very successful. We have had over so many top players. In fact, one year I was in Dallas, and a guy come up to me and he said, "Are you Ted Nesbitt?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Tom Brumley's looking for you."
Jeez. Wow.
I thought, oh, right. So, but Tom had a booth over there, you know what?
Of course,
selling CDs and all that sort of
sure.
thing. So I was over and it was up to Tom, and he said, "Man, when can you bring me to Ireland? I'd love to play Ireland again. I haven't been there since Buck Owens days, you know."
Yeah.
And I says, "Okay, Tom, leave it to me. We'll see what we can do." And we actually booked him for that October. And then I got an email from him to say that Capitol Records were doing a rerun. What was this out of this worked out? They wanted to put the Buckaroos back together again.
Oh, wow.
Right? And this was all happening at the same time that our show was going to be, and Tom said, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to give you a rain check on this. I can't make it, you know. But I could recommend someone else, which he did, and I think we brought Ron Elliott over in his place.
Sure,
you know?
sure. Yeah.
So, but we've had Al Briscoe's been there, Joe Wright's been there, Ronnie Miller.
Ronnie, yeah, was there in 2022.
Yes,
What a great guy.
Mike Hedrick.
Mike Hedrick's been there, yes. We have had some really top shelf players there.
And
you know.
young Tyler Hall was here
Tyler.
a couple of years ago.
And
Bruce Boughton, oh my God,
Bruce has been there, yeah.
I remember.
So,
amazing.
And Ted, I'm going to put you. I'm going to corner you yet again, because this is early 2023. I know the festival's scheduled to go ahead in October. Any leaks as in who may be the headline?
Exclusives. We have it here first.
no.
No, not at this point.
I don't even think there was a meeting actually recently, and unfortunately I was unable to go to it. But I would say that there's been a couple of names has been
put in the hat.
Sure. To the approach, you know. So
well, there will be something confirmed, I would imagine, in the coming months. Yeah. Well, we look forward to that.
But in actual fact, the ISCA would be getting close to the time when we wouldn't really need an American artist.
Of course.
We've got so many good players now in Ireland and in Europe.
I know that.
I mean, when you listen to David Hartley,
phenomenal.
Who in America could play better than David Hartley? No one. He's fabulous. Absolutely.
He's a great player.
You know, so.
And we have Sarah.
And Sarah Jory and Johan Janssen from the Netherlands.
Yeah,
so many great players in Europe now, you know.
European guys are great too. Yeah.
Even this year, the first time I met him, and I bought something from him a few months back, but first time I met him was at the SteelTalk Heart Festival. Is Davy Holland, another coming from Scotland, a great player?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, played with MSA.
And Benny Peterson as well.
Yeah.
Great player.
Yeah.
Carter man.
That's right.
I think he bought his own there recently. I think maybe he bought his own, but he still got the Carter. Lovely. No, great players.
Ted, there's another player I've mentioned to you a few times, and he's never came to play at the festival, but you were quite friendly with his dad, and he's from the UK. Melvin Duffy.
Melvin Duffy.
Melvin was a phenomenal. I heard records that Melvin played on 20 years ago, and I remember thinking to myself, what a player this guy is. But I've never got to see him play or live.
Well, Melvin's father, Kevin, used to play steel for Anne Breen.
All right. Yeah, of course, yeah.
And Kevin, I got to know Kevin when he was living over in Northern Ireland. He was living in Ballyclare, and he bought an amplifier from me, and that's how I got to know him. And then he told me about his son, Melvin, who I had never heard of. But anyway, Melvin lived in London, and he was playing for a couple of high-profile bands there. And every now and again, he would come over to Ballyclare and spend the weekend with his father. And he played in Emmons Push Bowl, right? And Kevin told me he was coming over. Why don't you come up and meet Melvin? Which I did. And I was blown away with this guy. This guy was the most incredible player I'd ever met.
Yeah.
And he played both necks.
He did. That's right.
And anyway, I used to sit with Melvin. Sometime his father was working, and I would go up to the house, and Melvin would be there on his own. And Melvin would spend 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the evening.
Practicing.
Or the afternoon practicing.
Jeez.
That's how good he was. And then he joined Jimmy Nail.
He did Crocodile Shoes, right?
Yeah. That's a big one.
And then he joined a band called White Snake.
Yeah.
Right. And then he joined Robbie Williams.
Robbie Williams, that's right.
So he was in there, you know.
Yeah.
And at the time that guitar player Mark Knopfler, the time Mark Knopfler was looking for a steel player, Mark Knopfler said, if I can't get Paul Franklin, I'm going to get Melvin Duffy.
I heard that story before. Yeah, that was the big tour that Dire Straits done. I think it was called Dire Straits on the Night, and of course that's that particular tour where it features Paul playing the steel solo and the Walk of Life. But that's the particular tour. I do believe that Melvin was on the sideline of
Yes.
And you know when you're second to Paul Franklin.
You're doing all right.
It says something about your playing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know Melvin, obviously.
Yes. And I tried to get Melvin to come over. I sent him a couple of emails trying to get him to come to the Irish show, but Kevin said to me, he doesn't do that sort of thing. You know, he done Newbury.
Yeah.
I seen him in Newbury a couple of times, but when he got into the higher caliber of bands, he stopped doing that sort of thing.
I never thought I'd done that sort of thing either, but you talked me into it.
But
you did. You talked me into it.
I did indeed.
I'll never forgive you for it. I actually enjoy the Steel Festival.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to keep going. Like.
It is. It's been a very successful event, annual event. For how long now is it running, Ted?
Well, we started in 2002 was the first one.
So it's 21 years.
Yeah.
This year it'll be, so
That's it.
very good, Ted.
So there we go.
Ted, I'm sure there's other things, lots of other great stories that you could tell us, because I've often sat with you in your home and we just accidentally...
Oh, you come across some item and then before you know it, there's a story behind it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You also have a love for old cars, classic cars.
I do. I love old cars.
Yeah.
And the love of my life at the minute is a 1992 Ford Escort Ghia.
Yeah.
With 40,000 miles on it, and absolutely mint condition.
Beautiful.
Lovely car. So
there's a great story. Tell our listeners about when you were in the States, about the guy. You decided to head off to see his place. The car guy.
Yes.
Oh yes. Yeah, this was only a couple of years, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We were over in New England, and I was heading down to Hartford, Connecticut, to see the house of Mark Twain. Right. And he's got a huge house, which is open to the public, or you get conducted tours of it. Anyway, as I'm driving along, I seen the sign for Portland. I thought, that rings a bell, so off the interstate and followed this road until eventually I come to F40.
Yeah.
Performance cars,
F40.
Wayne Carini,
Carini.
chasing classic cars. And so I pulled in there anyway, and I thought, I'll make myself known here. And I went into the office, and this lady said to me, "Can I help you, sir?" And I said, "I'm here to see Mr. Wayne Carini." She said, "Do you have an appointment?" I said, "No, I don't. I just happen to be passing by, and I'm on the way from Ireland to Connecticut to to what do you call him? Mark Twain's house."
Yeah.
And I just thought I'd drop in and say hello to Wayne anyway. She says, "Well, he's not here at the minute, but if you hang around, he'll be here in 10 or 15 minutes. He's gone into town to buy some parts,
Sure.
you know." So it's true enough. Wayne comes rolling in, and this woman said, "There's a man here to see you, and how do you do, Wayne?" and blah blah blah. And before you knew it, we spent the whole afternoon together talking cars. And
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Classic cars and steel guitars,
classic cars and steel guitars.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So there you go.
Ted, there was something I wanted to touch base with you. A lot of our instruments are all built in the US and very finely built. You know, at heart, I guess I love these old Emmons guitars, although they weigh a ton. But you know, you've got the MSAs, the Zooms, and you've got your Mullins and all. But in the UK, you've got a couple of very good friends that builds pedal steels. You've got Dave Wheelhouse.
Dave Wheelhouse builds the Sheffield,
Yeah.
which is a great instrument.
Yeah. And you've spent time with Dave. You've been to his place.
Yes, oh yes.
You've seen his master work.
Ron Bennett, who's been building pedal steel guitars from the from the 70s.
Yeah, well, I had the pleasure, due to yourself, I had the pleasure of visiting Ron lately.
Yes.
And his good partner Sheena. Lovely, beautiful people, and I spent a few hours with them at their home in Inverness. Due to yourself, you set up the appointment. And, yeah.
And believe it or not, there was another guy up in Scotland who built steel guitars from long ago, Springfield. Do you remember those?
That's right.
Springfield guitars.
Actually,
A fellow called Jim Kerr. And he tried to base his design or the looks of the instrument on a showbud. And then there was another guy over in Little Driffield in Yorkshire, and he built a guitar called the White.
The White.
W-H-I-T-E.
Yeah.
And so there was about 4 or 5 serious manufacturers of pedal steels.
Of course.
Although being an instrument of very, very limited sales, you know, they didn't have huge factories or nothing, you know.
I understand.
It's like a cottage industry,
Yeah.
really, you know.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But over in Europe, then you had a guy from Holland who made De Vis. He built pedal steels.
That's right.
The biggest one is WBS,
Yeah.
Wolfgang.
Yeah.
And he builds a very fine guitar.
Brilliant guitar.
Bednars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course the most refined instrument built in Europe would be the Shield, made in Switzerland.
Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it. Peter Shield.
Yeah.
And he started making bicycles.
Yeah.
And he went from there to pedal steel guitars, you know, right? But it's probably the finest pedal steel guitar made in Europe.
Really.
And
I remember one time you told me, because we were talking Emmonses and we were talking push pulls, and you were able to tell me about Promat.
this guitar here was copied by Mr. Promat. What's his name? God, I can't remember his name now. But he made an absolute replica of the Emmons push pull.
Yeah.
And the only difference between his guitar and the original guitar is his guitar is metric.
Metric.
And this one is
Imperial, yeah.
is imperial, right?
Yeah.
And
And they had it even, because when you told me about this, and me being an Emmons fan, I started doing some research on the internet. They even had the Emmons
logos, yes.
logos
Yes.
on the fretboard, and they're quite sought after, because he didn't make that many of them.
No, he passed away there actually,
Right.
some years ago.
Right.
And
A fine guitar.
oh, excellent guitar. Bobby Seymour was really the importer in the US. Bobby said the Emmons Guitar Company couldn't afford to make a guitar of that quality because they would have to charge an enormous price for it, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
But they reckon the Rolls Royce of guitars in the world is a Nana Peg,
Australia.
made in Australia.
You told me
By
that.
Noel,
I remember.
Noel Ansted. And I met Noel on 2 occasions actually when I was in Australia. Lovely man. And he stopped making guitars too, but there's quite a few of them around, you
Is
know.
that right?
Yeah.
Very good.
And Tom Brumley had 2 of them.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah.
I think Jeff Newman had one,
Sure.
if I can recall.
Yeah.
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 Brilliant.
So
Like yourself, you mentioned Bobby Seymour. Bobby sold and wheeled and dealed in steels as well. You had a good relationship with Bobby, Ted?
Bobby was a character, believe it or not. He really was. Bobby Seymour was one of these guys. He made a lot of money during his days of playing on the road, and then he went into recording, and he bought a recording studio, and he done very well. And then he bought a second recording studio, and then I don't know where all the money come from, but Bobby ended up, and then he bought an airplane. Yes.
And then he's wheeling and dealing and stealing.
And the last time I was in Bobby's place, he was in Midtown Court in Hendersonville.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Hi Ted, have you seen my cars?" I says, "No, Bobby." He says, "Come and I see my cars." And he had a shop next door to where his shop was.
Yeah.
And he put the shutters up. And we went inside, and there's half a dozen of these muscle cars.
Wow.
He was into this sort of stuff too. And but a real character.
Real character.
And he says, "Oh, let me introduce you to my wife Jeannie," and this bombshell comes walking. Oh, she was a stunner, you know. So, but anyway,
I think the finer things.
his women like fleeced him, you know. They really did.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Ted, a name that you touched on a bit earlier, and I've never met the guy, but I've often watched him online and that. Joe Wright, he appears to be a great character. You've met Joe at the festival.
Joe and I become friends, and then we fell out. Anyway, I'll tell you the story.
Right.
Morris Wilson and I were in Newbury one year.
Yeah.
And Newbury is normally held in the spring, right? And Joe Wright was playing, and I said to Morris, "Hey, there's the guy we want to get here for our show for the end of the year." And Morris said, "Yeah, good idea." So anyway, off he goes. "Joe, can we have a word?" Yeah. "Would you be interested in coming and playing in Ireland in October?" "Oh man," he said, "I'd love to do that." You know, so we booked him. And I says, "Right."
You done a deal there and then?
Done a deal there and then. And when we had a meeting later on when we were back home again, this was in January, February, March, April, I think it was, when Jerry's Festival was on. And we had a meeting about June or July in Dublin. And we announced that we'd booked Joe Wright, and Richard Nelson, he blew up. "You what?" He says, "We booked Joe Wright." "You'll remember this, Richard." So anyway, he said, "What'd you book him for?" I said, "Because he's a great player." "Why would you book anyone? Like he's a super player." Like.
Yeah.
But sure, he's been to Newbury, and most of the people who go to Newbury will then come to our show.
Yeah.
So they won't come to our show if they've said, "Sure, we seen Joe a couple of months ago." He says, "You may tell him, no, to cancel it." I says, "What?" "Just tell him that you have to book someone else because he's already been to the UK." So anyway, I went on to Joe's website, and Joe had about 5 different email addresses. So I picked out 2 of the 5 and sent him an email explaining the whole situation. So anyway, that was fine. Never got any word from him. And then, what happened then? I met him again in Dallas, prior to him coming to Ireland.
Of course.
Right.
So that'd have been March, yeah.
And I said, "Joe, I hope you don't feel bad about my last email." "What email?" "I sent you an email regarding our show in October." "I got no email." And I had to sit down, Joe, and I told him the story. Wow, was he angry.
He was impressed.
He was really angry. And every time we seen each other, we would be walking by and he would just turn his head the other way.
Gee.
Then eventually,
Took it bad.
I got a letter or an email from him saying, "Ted, I found that email you sent me. I thought you were shooting me a line,
Yeah.
but it was genuine and you gave me plenty of notice. My apologies."
Very good.
And this was in Dublin again. Was it Dublin?
Yeah.
Well, but anyway, we made up and become
Cool.
friends. So we'll come.
And you did eventually come to
Oh, he did, yes,
the
yes.
festival, which was good.
But a great player. Oh,
He's a fabulous player, isn't he?
mighty player.
Yeah.
He was with Charlie Pride, of course, wasn't he?
He
For-
played with Charlie
for
and
years.
I said, "What happened to you and Charlie?" "He fired me." And then he brought him back and he fired me again.
Yeah. But he's a very bright character, Joe,
Yes,
isn't he?
he is, yeah.
He's and again a great player. We haven't made it, myself and Jonathan, at this point of our lives. We haven't made it to Dallas, but all the stories that you've told me, some fabulous stories about people you met, and I suppose times changed, but it's a good festival for the likes of us and this side of the world to head across to, Ted.
It's probably with St. Louis, it quit, you know, after Scotty passed away,
Yeah.
and the two sons, Michael Scott and DeWitt Scott, the other son, they just really weren't interested, and they just let it fall down.
Okay,
you know.
okay.
So it's gone.
Yeah.
Which left. I remember John Huey telling me that he played about 13 shows around the US.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but St. Louis was the show, followed by the Dallas show, followed by the Phoenix show, and then the smaller ones after that. You know.
Yeah.
So, if you had, you could spend the whole year just traveling around the USA visiting all these steel guitar shows.
Yeah.
Ted, looking upon looking upon things in general, you certainly hit the steel guitar era at a wonderful time.
Oh yes.
Unlike me, I've always had a love for it, but it's only in the past 3-4 years, pre-COVID really, that I got bogged down in, and I'm really enjoying pedal steel now. But you have been going till Dallas in the 80s, in Buddy's time. Thankfully Lloyd's still with us, but you know, you've seen Tom Bromley, the greats. You have, and you've been there. You've heard them play. You've shared their company. It was a great era.
Certainly was. And one of the nicest guys I ever met. I was sitting in a bar in St. Louis one year, and this guy sat down beside me, and it turned out his name was Jerry Brightman. Does the name ring a bell?
No, actually.
Jerry Brightman was
Brightman.
steel player for Buck Owens.
Wow.
Oh, right.
What a player. He was 19 years old when he went to play with Buck Owens.
Really?
Wow.
That's
Now,
after Tom
I
Bromley,
think he played between Bromley and JD.
Ah, right.
Somewhere in between, but what a player.
Yeah.
And then he actually decided then to manufacture pedal steel guitars, and he made a guitar called the Performance.
Oh,
I had one for sale there some years ago. They're a beautiful, beautiful guitar.
Really?
It was
Can't think.
it was like an Emmons all pull, you know.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
And the guy died very young. I think he died when he was only about 55, you know.
Gee.
But great player. Lovely guy.
And of course, sorry, Ryan. JD, you mentioned JD there. JD was over at the festival with you.
Yes.
You were telling me about his setup on the two PVs. He wanted it set up special or something.
Yes.
I found that was
unusual. He come over to me the last time he was here, and he come on the Saturday, and he said, "Can I borrow an amplifier, Ted?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he come back 10 minutes later. He says, "Can I borrow another one?" I said, "Why, did that one break down?" No. I like two, he says. Yeah. He had two amps with him. But when it come to Sunday, there was only one available because I had one sold.
Didn't he turn the polarity on the speaker or something?
Oh no! I tell you that. No, you're talking about.
Is that not?
I rented an amplifier to Randy Travis's man.
Oh, Steve Henson.
Steve Henson.
Was that what it was? Sorry, I thought.
And Steve Henson said to me, "Ted, I have to have a Nashville 400. I said, "Okay, I got one." And it was a beauty. He said, "The guy who's supplying the equipment, he's up in Derry somewhere now. John, I got his name somewhere in my book.
Right.
He didn't have a Nashville, but he wanted a Nashville 400. I said, "Okay, I've got one for you." And
that's when Randy Travis was over and played the Millennium.
And when I watched the band come on, and Steve, normally you would have the amplifier sitting facing the audience, and he turned it the other way around.
Sure, facing him.
And I never ever got a real answer as to why he done that, you know.
Well, I think I do see that quite often, and particularly.
Although it would be mic'd up, of course.
Of course, in auditoriums, because it's probably easier for the sound man if there's not too much stage volume pointing his way, it gives him better control through the PA system.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the reasons.
Talking about festivals and so forth, going away back in 2009 or 10, I got a call from Jamie Lennon.
Oh yeah,
Right.
of course. Another.
And Jamie was playing at the Balmoral Festival in Belfast.
Yeah.
Right? And
Or George Jones or something, was it?
no,
Was that when George
he
was
was.
over, or
I can't remember who he was playing with.
UTV Fest or something?
But anyway, he said to me about he wanted an amplifier. I said, okay, I'll sort you out that amplifier. And he wanted a 112. And I said, if you can sort me out with an amplifier. No, he said to me, if you can sort me out with an amplifier, I'll sort you out with a couple of passes, right, for the show.
Cool.
So anyway, I get to the King's Hall in Belfast. Right, Jimmy, I'm here. Where are you? He says, right, come over to the fence. He told me where to go. And he comes along and he had this woman with him, you know. And I says, right, he said, bring your guitar round, or your amplifier round to the front door, and I'll meet you there. And he gave me 2 passes and says on it, staff.
Yeah. Right.
So I gave one to Joan, and I kept one. And I says, by the way, we'll have to arrange when I gotta collect this amplifier again, you know. And he says, we're staying in a house in Coal Island, County Tyrone. James McGarry has rented my house. And it turned out that the woman he was with was
Georgette.
Georgette.
That's right, Georgette Jones.
You just met her, actually.
Jamie had met Georgette at one of the festivals here. That's right and correct, yeah. And fell in love, and the rest is history.
That's right.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of sharing their company a few years ago in Nashville, where I went to a studio and had an opportunity that arose that I recorded a duet with Georgette. And we had a fabulous day together in Nashville and in the studio. And Jamie played steel on the session, and we had a great time. He had his Blue Franklin guitar at the time, and he had his little Walter set up, and we had great fun. And then a couple of nights later, we all met at the station in at 45 p.m. to go and see the show.
I remember the time I had to go and pick up the amplifier, and he said to me, I'm staying in a house in Coal Island, and when I went to the house and I went ding dong, the door opened and Georgette opened the door, and I said to Georgette, something's burning. She had a pizza in the oven. With somebody opened the door.
Brilliant.
Oh, it was burned to hell.
Excellent. Great story.
Well, once again, Ted, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Thank you to Jonathan as well.
Of course, my pleasure.
My co-driver, a teammate, and it's been a pleasure having Ted. We're going to get you to finish off once again. You might play another piece for us.
Oh, just a little riff of two.
Lovely.
Here we go.
All right. Beautiful.
Nice stuff.
Ted Nesbitt, thank you very much.